Have you ever wondered why people in Joe Biden's administration willingly went along with the plot to cover up his cognitive decline? I mean, we all saw it happen in real time, but why were people okay with this? Were they hoping to become the next Hunter Biden and profit off of their connection to Joe? Or were they hoping that they'd be the next Jen Psaki and land a gig on cable TV thanks to their access to the administration? Or were they just diehard Democrats who wanted power for their party? Well, thanks to a new House Oversight Committee report, we have more insights as to how this cover-up happened, as well as whether or not that Autopen was abused. Did people in power circumvent, go around the president's authority? Did they subvert the will of the American people to abuse their access to the president? One of the people that was under investigation is someone that most of us haven't heard of. His name is Mike Donilon, but even though most people haven't heard of him, he is one of the most important people in Joe Biden's sphere. So according to the Washington Post, Donilon, who had been with Biden for decades, is seen by the others as his conscience, alter ego, and shared brain. One longtime Biden advisor estimated that no fewer than 10,000 times in their working relationship has the president turned to Donilon and asked, Mike, what do you think? But that is not all. In her brand new book, 107 Days, Kamala Harris herself has written about Donilon. I had my concerns, Harris wrote. Some, like Mike Donilon, one of Joe's closest advisors, had moved from the West Wing to the campaign, talking about her campaign, because he was an expert in channeling Joe. He knew Joe's every whim and inflection. It was unclear how that expertise could work for me, wrote Harris. In fact, Donilon left her campaign, and returned to the West Wing less than 2 weeks later. So the reason I share both of those excerpts are just to show, how close Donilon was to Joe Biden. Well, he was interviewed by the House Select Committee. They've now released, I believe, 47 hours of transcripts, not just from him, but from a whole range of people, as well as video clips. And he admitted that not only was he paid $4 million to work on Joe Biden's campaign, but he was guaranteed a $4 million bonus if Joe Biden won. In other words, he was incentivized 8 million different ways to cover up for Joe Biden's decline. Now, some of you may be saying, well, Daniel, campaign managers get paid. There's a bit of a difference here. That bonus is really unusual, and there's actually no precedent for a $4 million bonus in any presidential campaign ever. But before we get to that, let's take a look at this clip where he's being interviewed. Keep in mind, not only is he one of Joe Biden's closest advisors, this guy is a lawyer. Just see if he comes across as lawyerish and professional and confident, or if he seems to be squirming under the questioning here.
That's my view.
Just to be clear, would the amount of pay you received for your role in the campaign, would that have changed depending on how far into the race President Biden made it?
My sense is that in my view, the money was that it was a guarantee for the campaign that we'd had a negotiation, and that's my memory of the agreement.
Would you have received a bonus depending on the way the campaign went? Was that a possibility?
How the campaign went.
Were there any circumstances in which you would have received a bonus?
Yes, there was.
What were those circumstances?
That Joe Biden would have been reelected president of the United States.
What would the bonus have been?
I believe it would have been $4 million.
In addition to the $4 million that you were already paid.
Yes.
Yeah, so he would have gotten $8 million had Joe Biden stayed in the race and ended up winning the race. Of course, that didn't happen. But that right there gave him $8 million to maybe hide polling data from Joe Biden to make sure that he didn't know how unpopular he was, maybe to help keep him in the race, hide certain information from him. But as part of this interview process from the House Select Committee, the Oversight Committee, it wasn't just him. They interviewed a ton of people, and a lot of new revelations have come up, including this one, according to the Daily Mail. Biden doctor refused to perform cognitive exam on president, shocking congressional report says. So much information has come out here. Now, it's not unusual for campaign managers to be paid large amounts of money, but that $4 million upfront is, well, not only is that a lot and a little unusual, that $4 million bonus is very unusual. So if we actually go back in time before the Trump campaign, just take a look at this from the Washington Post. The Obama campaign awarded about $171,000 in bonuses to a quartet of top staffers. So that $171,000, not only is that obviously a far cry from $4 million, but it was divided 4 ways. So that final chunk that they all got was a lot smaller. If you take a look at the sentence before that, Beeson, who worked on Mitt Romney's campaign, his bonus, yes, I know Romney lost, but his bonus was $37,500. Again, a far cry from $4 million. If you go back in time, whether it's Bush, Clinton, Reagan, Nixon, and just keep going back, there is no instance where a campaign manager was promised, let alone awarded, $4 million for running a campaign. Again, this is highly unusual because of all the campaign finance laws, precedent. You see all of this. And if we actually take a look at today, during the Trump era, there is no information out there about what Susie Wiles was paid. Susie Wiles, of course, spearheaded Trump's campaign. It is reported by Google's AI overview, and I know a lot of people don't trust AI, but it's according to them, her special bonus was her new position in the White House as President Trump's chief of staff. But like I said, if you try to look for her compensation, it's not available online. To be very fair, Chris LaSavita, he received a lot of money, but from what I understand, those payments weren't from the Trump campaign itself. Rather, they were from individual tertiary related super PACs. And of course, there's a lot of money in political super PACs. And so all of that to say, this raised a lot of eyebrows, and this is all part of the House Oversight Committee's report and their investigation into the use of the Autopen. This isn't a revenge. This isn't a trying to, look under every stone and look for crimes just to persecute the previous administration. No, if the Autopen was abused, then that means, that has a lot of policy implications. That has implications for all of the pardons. This really runs deep. So more information on this Autopen scandal. This is a recommendation that the committee put forward. The committee deems void all executive actions signed by the Autopen without proper corresponding contemporaneous written approval traceable to the president's own consent. That's what they found during all of these investigations. And obviously, this all connects. This goes back to Mike Donilon, because the question here is, were people acting outside of Joe Biden's consent without his knowledge? Were they circumventing his authority? Were they working around him? Were they doing this to cover up for him because they wanted power? Did they want to exert their influence and their will on the American people? Were they incentivized by money? There are a lot of questions here. And so what the Oversight Committee did was they put forward a recommendation that the DOJ open an investigation in all of this. So basically, the House committees gathered all of these transcripts. They've done all these interviews. Like I said, I think it's like 47 hours that they've published, but obviously it goes into the hundreds of hours. But they've really narrowed the focus quite down. While Pam Bondi responded to the House Oversight Committee in a post on X, my team has already initiated a review of the Biden administration's reported use of Autopen for pardons. Representative James Comer's new information is extremely valuable, and his leadership on this issue is invaluable. We'll continue working with the GOP Oversight Committee to deliver accountability for the American people. So that gives a lot of people some hope. Now, some people don't necessarily have the most faith in Pam Bondi. If you take a look at that post on X, all of the top comments, all of the top replies are people saying, is this going to be another Epstein files? What are you doing? What's taking so long? So there are really two camps here. The camp that's just, hey, wait and see, let them do their job. And then there's the other camp that's gotten, they approve mostly of what the administration is doing, but they don't like the job that Pam Bondi has done. Well, Hakeem Jeffries was slamming the Trump administration for the Schumer shutdown for whatever reason, and he was actually confronted about this House Oversight Committee recommendation and this report, and he just lost his mind, really, because instead of actually answering the question, he started throwing out insults and started, I thought the Democrat Party, weren't they the ones saying, oh, President Trump is bad, President Trump doesn't have the temperament to be president because he throws out mean tweets and Trump uses insults? Well, take a look at these insults from Hakeem Jeffries, who obviously has presidential ambitions.
The House Oversight Committee released their report into the former President Biden's Autopen use and the probe that they investigated. And Attorney General Pam Bondi said that the DOJ will initiate a review of the Biden administration's reported use of the Autopen for pardons. Can I get your reaction to that?
The so-called chairman of the House Oversight Committee, James Comer, continues to behave like a malignant clown. We can't point to a single thing that he's actually done to make life better for the American people. Here's what he should investigate if he's investigating presidents or former presidents. Investigate the fact that Donald Trump promised that costs would go down on day one. He promised, Donald Trump, repeatedly, that costs would go down on day one. Costs haven't gone down. They're going up. Inflation moving in the wrong direction.
Investigating a promise, investigating the economy. That's why we have the Labor Bureau statistics. That's why we have different branches of government to do the work that was promised. Like, what are you even talking about, Hakeem Jeffries? That is insane. And then malignant clown. I have not heard that insult before, but talk about, super disparaging right there. And I think the reason he was so angry, I think the reason he pivoted and tried to attack was because he knows that, hey, this is a bad look for the previous administration. And hopefully if things get cleaned up, people will be held accountable. And even if the Justice Department decides not to do anything, at least actions will be exposed and people will know exactly what happened. The reason this matters, the investigation matters so much because so many executive actions, we'll get to the pardons in a second, but so many of the executive actions were unconstitutional. The easiest one to think of is student loan forgiveness. The Supreme Court flat out said, hey, you cannot forgive student loans via executive order, via executive action. Yet Joe Biden did it anyway. Wait a minute, where are the Democrats? Why didn't the Democrats scream when Joe Biden did that? They're saying that Donald Trump is a threat to democracy. Meanwhile, Joe Biden flat out disobeyed what the Supreme Court said. How is that not trampling on the Constitution? How is that not expanding the power of the presidency? And so that's why, there are going to be some people who say, well, Daniel, the Autopen happened in the past. Why should we care now? Well, executive actions can be overturned if they were fraudulent. Those pardons can be overturned if they were fraudulent. Yes, pardons are typically meant, especially presidential pardons, to be final. So this definitely would be a new legal theory, and it would have to be tried in a court of law, potentially in front of the Supreme Court. But why, if something bad did happen, which usually when there's smoke, there's a fire, why shouldn't that be investigated? Why shouldn't that be looked into? It's not for revenge. It's not for retribution. It's for accountability. And it's also to make sure that it doesn't happen again. Now, Hakeem Jeffries can try to bring the shutdown into the conversation all he wants, and he's trying to distract from the corruption that's being exposed. But unfortunately for him, even when the Democrats try to focus on the shutdown, even that backfires on them. Here's a look from CNN.
It hasn't. If anything, it's been helped a little bit. Take a look here, the shift in net popularity versus pre-shutdown. When we're looking at the Republican Party overall, that brand actually up 2 points. That's within the margin of error, but clearly it hasn't dropped. Come over to this side of the screen. Look at the net approval ratings for Republicans in Congress. It's actually up 5 points since pre-shutdown. So what we're seeing here is the Republican brand in Congress has actually improved somewhat compared to where we were pre-shutdown, despite the fact that Republicans control. And that's the math that John Thune and Mike Johnson are looking at is, well, hey, why should we give, and electorally speaking, when our brand has actually improved a little bit?
Now, we say there...
Yep, that is really shocking, and I don't think the Democrats were expecting that. And the Democrats, by the way, if you watched cable TV yesterday, even on the left-wing networks, they were all excoriated, they were all fact-checked, they were all really confronted by the reporters on CNN, MSNBC, CBS. Like, what in the world was going on? They were all being held to the fire because of the shutdown. It was really something to see yesterday on TV. Well, like I said, I know a lot of people are doubting whether or not the DOJ is actually going to take action on this, but there is pressure finally coming from the House, not just this committee, but from House leadership. But before we get into that, I would like to acknowledge the members of today's Governor's Club. They are Evgenia Kurguskina, LT Brutus, Beehive65, and Killer GMA. These are people who give tips and super thanks to the channel. Thank you so much. I'm glad that you enjoy, and I'm glad that you're here. Well, Speaker Mike Johnson has really, relied on this committee, and now he is taking the recommendations and he's really championing it and calling on the DOJ to actually take action on their findings.
Our House committees have continued to conference together and do all the work we can to ensure legislation is ready for the floor for action as soon as we get back to legislative session. The House also continues to carry out its essential oversight duties. And you'll be reporting on this all day, but the Oversight Chairman James Comer released a blockbuster report now on the Biden Autopen presidency. And this report includes 47 hours worth of transcripts and testimony revealing that every executive action signed by the Autopen without written authorization from President Biden should be voided. This is an unprecedented situation in American politics and government. The actions of President Biden simply were not all his own actions, and there are major implications to that, including all the pardons that he signed.
It really is an unprecedented situation, not just what happened in the past, but the fact that the entire Republican Party seems to be united and on the same page on this. So I'm hoping that with that unification, with everyone being interested in uncovering that abuse of power and any fraudulent activity done in the White House, I'm hoping that justice is served, people are held accountable, and any unauthorized actions are revoked. As always, though, all of this is just my analysis and commentary. That's what's happening in the world of politics from my point of view, and I would love to hear from you. So, with this new House Oversight Committee report and the referral to the DOJ and Pam Bondi's statement, are you hopeful that anything will happen, or are you worried that this is just going to fall by the wayside? Let me know what you think about everything going on down in the comments below. Personally, it's one of those things where I'm like, it would be nice if something happened, but I'm not going to hold my breath. I think the administration's very busy, and I think they've done a lot of great stuff, but on the DOJ side of things, it's been a little slower, a little more chaotic, and a little more, I'd say, disappointing. Other parts of what the administration is doing, I'm very excited about. But as far as the DOJ, that's been the one area where it seems to, just not be living up to, let's say, expectations. If you haven't already, please be sure to leave me a thumbs up. I know it's a simple thing to ask for, but it really does help me reach more viewers like you in the algorithm. Be sure to smash that subscribe button and to check out one of these videos.